In the quiet town of Eldergrove, nestled between rolling hills and ancient forests, lived a man named Ethan. He was an unassuming figure, with tousled brown hair that always seemed to have a mind of its own, and eyes that held a curious spark, as if they were constantly searching for something just beyond reach. Ethan had spent most of his 32 years working at the local library, surrounded by dusty tomes and forgotten stories, content in his solitude. His life took an unexpected turn one crisp autumn evening when he stumbled upon a peculiar object while walking through the woods near his home. The air had been unusually still that night, and the moon hung low, casting long shadows across the forest floor. As Ethan wandered deeper into the trees, drawn by an inexplicable pull, he noticed a faint, otherworldly glow emanating from beneath a cluster of fallen leaves. Kneeling down, he brushed away the debris to reveal a small, intricately carved crystal pendant. It pulsed gently in his hand, warm to the touch, and seemed to hum with a soft, melodic vibration. The moment Ethan touched the pendant, his world shifted. A sudden rush of images flooded his mind. Strange landscapes bathed in hues unknown to Earth, towering crystalline structures that shimmered like liquid light, and beings with elongated limbs and luminous eyes. Among these visions, one scene stood out vividly. A grand palace constructed entirely of translucent material, where streams of light danced across its surface like living water. At the heart of this vision, Ethan saw himself standing beside a figure whose face remained obscured, both of them surrounded by alien creatures dressed in ceremonial attire. Before he could fully process what he had seen, a voice resonated in his mind, neither male nor female, but carrying an authority that demanded attention. "You are chosen," it declared. "Prepare yourself, for your presence is required." The words echoed through his consciousness, leaving behind a mixture of awe and trepidation. When Ethan finally came to, he found himself sitting on the forest floor, the pendant still clutched tightly in his hand. Though rational thought told him to dismiss the experience as some sort of hallucination, the weight of the pendant in his palm felt undeniably real. Over the following days, Ethan's life became a whirlwind of strange occurrences. The pendant never left his side, and wherever he went, people seemed to regard him differently, as though they could sense something extraordinary about him, even if they couldn't quite articulate it. His dreams were filled with fragments of the alien world he had glimpsed, each night bringing new details into focus. He began to feel an inexplicable longing, not just to understand the visions but to step into them, to uncover the truth hidden within their radiant depths. Despite his growing unease, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the pendant was more than just a relic. It was a key, unlocking doors to realms far beyond his comprehension. And so, with a mix of fear and determination, he resolved to follow wherever this mysterious path might lead. Little did he know, the journey ahead would challenge everything he thought he knew about himself, and about the universe itself. As weeks passed, Ethan's connection to the pendant deepened, drawing him further into a reality that defied explanation. One evening, as he sat alone in his modest apartment, the crystal suddenly flared with an intensity that lit up the entire room. Its glow enveloped him, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat, until the walls around him dissolved into nothingness. In their place emerged the alien landscape from his visions, a vast expanse of shimmering terrain under skies painted in swirling colors. Towering spires of translucent material stretched toward the heavens, their surfaces alive with cascading lights that seemed to breathe. The air carried a faint hum, like the resonance of 1,000 unseen instruments playing in harmony. Ethan stumbled forward, disoriented but awestruck. Before he could gather his thoughts, a group of ethereal beings approached him. They moved with fluid grace, their elongated forms clad in flowing garments that shimmered like liquid silver. Their eyes glowed softly, radiating intelligence and curiosity. One of them stepped closer, extending a delicate hand adorned with intricate patterns that shifted and changed as if alive. Without speaking, it gestured for Ethan to follow. He hesitated, his heart pounding, but something within him urged him onward. The beings led him through winding pathways lined with crystalline flora that emitted soft, melodic tones when touched by the breeze. Each step revealed wonders beyond imagination, floating orbs of light that danced in synchronized patterns, pools of liquid that reflected constellations unseen from Earth, and structures that seemed to defy the laws of physics, hovering effortlessly above the ground. Despite the strangeness of it all, Ethan felt no fear, only a profound sense of belonging, as though he had returned to a place he had once known but forgotten. Eventually, they arrived at the palace from his visions. Up close, It was even more magnificent than he had imagined. Its walls refracted light in dazzling arrays, creating an ever-changing tapestry of colors that played across the surrounding landscape. Inside, the grandeur continued unabated. Hallways stretched endlessly, adorned with intricate carvings that told stories in a language Ethan couldn't read but somehow understood. The air was thick with anticipation, buzzing with whispers and murmurs that seemed to echo from every direction. It wasn't long before Ethan realized the purpose of his presence. The beings guided him to a massive chamber where hundreds of their kind had gathered, their luminous forms arranged in concentric circles around a central dais. Atop the dais stood another figure, cloaked in robes that shimmered like starlight. As Ethan drew nearer, the crowd parted, allowing him passage. When he reached the base of the dais, the figure turned to face him, revealing a visage both alien and hauntingly familiar. Her eyes locked onto his, and in that moment, Ethan felt an overwhelming surge of recognition, an inexplicable certainty that he had met her before, though he couldn't recall when or how. The being beside him spoke then, their voice resonating directly in his mind. "This is Lyria," they said, their tone reverent yet tinged with urgency. "She is your intended." The word struck Ethan like a thunderclap, sending shockwaves through his very soul. He stared at Lyria, his mind racing to make sense of what he was hearing. Intended? Groom. The implications were staggering, yet there was no denying the connection he felt, a bond so powerful it transcended logic and reason. Lyria extended her hand, and without hesitation, Ethan took it. Her touch sent warmth coursing through him, filling him with emotions he couldn't name. Around them, the assembled beings erupted into harmonious chants, their voices blending into a symphony that seemed to resonate with the fabric of existence itself. Ethan's head spun as he tried to reconcile the surreal events unfolding before him with the life he had left behind on Earth. Yet, even amidst the chaos of revelation, one thing became clear. This wedding was not merely a union between two individuals, it was a cosmic event, woven into the very threads of destiny. As the ceremony commenced, Ethan found himself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The rituals were unlike anything he had ever witnessed, blending ancient traditions with celestial elements that defied earthly understanding. Beings of light wove intricate patterns in the air, forming symbols that pulsed with energy before dissolving into shimmering motes. Chants rose and fell in waves, their cadence hypnotic, as if aligning the participants with some greater universal rhythm. Lyria stood beside him, her presence both calming and electrifying, her gaze unwavering as she shared in the gravity of the moment. Yet, despite the beauty and wonder surrounding him, Ethan's mind churned with questions. Why him? How could he, a simple man from a small town on Earth, be destined to stand here, at the center of such an extraordinary event? The doubts gnawed at him, threatening to overshadow the significance of the occasion. He glanced at Lyria, seeking answers in her luminous eyes, but her expression remained serene, offering no immediate clarity. Instead, she placed a gentle hand on his arm, as if sensing his turmoil and silently urging him to trust in the unfolding mystery. The emotional weight of the situation pressed heavily on Ethan. He felt torn between two worlds, the familiar comforts of his past life and the intoxicating allure of this alien realm. Memories of Eldergrove flickered in his mind, the scent of old books in the library, the quiet rustle of leaves in the forest, the faces of friends and neighbors who would never comprehend where he now stood. Guilt mingled with awe as he grappled with the realization that he might never return to the life he had known. Was he abandoning those who cared for him? Or was this the fulfillment of a purpose he had unknowingly carried all along? Amidst the swirling thoughts, a single moment crystallized everything. As the officiant, a towering being with iridescent wings, spoke words in a language that resonated deep within Ethan's soul, he felt a profound shift. It wasn't just the joining of two individuals. It was the merging of two destinies, two worlds, two timelines. The pendant around his neck pulsed brighter than ever, its warmth spreading through his chest and anchoring him to the present. For the first time, Ethan allowed himself to fully embrace the enormity of what was happening. This wasn't chance or coincidence, it was inevitability, written in the stars long before he had taken his first breath. Tears welled in his eyes as he looked at Lyria, her features illuminated by the cascading light of the palace. In her gaze, he saw not just love but understanding, a silent promise that together they would navigate whatever lay ahead. The doubts didn't vanish entirely, but they softened, becoming part of the tapestry rather than tearing it apart. Ethan realized that this journey wasn't about leaving behind who he was. It was about discovering who he was meant to become. And as the final vows were exchanged, sealing their bond in ways both tangible and ineffable, Ethan felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, a fragile flame that whispered of infinite possibilities yet to unfold. The days following the ceremony unfolded in a haze of wonder and adjustment. Ethan found himself navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the alien palace, learning its rhythms and secrets alongside Lyria. She became his guide, not only through the physical space but also through the cultural nuances of her people. Every interaction revealed new layers of complexity, from the subtle gestures that conveyed respect to the intricate dances performed during communal gatherings. Yet, despite her patience and kindness, Ethan often felt like an outsider looking in, acutely aware of the chasm between his human origins and the celestial sophistication of this world. One evening, as they strolled through a garden where bioluminescent plants cast shifting patterns of light across the ground, Lyria paused and turned to him. Her expression was softer than usual, tinged with something akin to melancholy. "Do you regret coming here?" she asked, her voice a whisper that seemed to blend with the ambient hum of the surroundings. The question caught Ethan off guard, stirring emotions he had been trying to suppress. Regret wasn't the right word. He didn't wish to undo what had happened, but the weight of his decision lingered heavily. "I don't regret it," he replied after a moment, choosing his words carefully. "But sometimes, I wonder if I'm enough. If I can truly belong here." His confession hung in the air, raw and vulnerable. Lyria reached out, her fingers brushing against his. Her touch carried a reassurance that transcended words, yet her next statement surprised him. "You already belong," she said firmly. "Not because of where you come from, but because of who you are. You carry something within you, a light that resonates with this place. That's why you were chosen." Her words sparked a flicker of hope, but they also raised more questions. What did she mean by chosen? And why did it feel as though there was still so much left unsaid? Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of one of the palace elders, a being whose presence commanded reverence. Clad in robes that shimmered like molten gold, the elder approached with deliberate steps, their glowing eyes fixed on Ethan. "There is much you must learn," they intoned, their voice resonating with an authority that made Ethan's skin prickle. "Your role extends beyond this union. You are a bridge, a conduit between worlds." Ethan frowned, confusion clouding his thoughts. A bridge? To what end? The elder's response was cryptic, speaking of alignments and prophecies, of cosmic balances teetering on the edge of collapse. Though the specifics eluded him, one thing became clear. His presence here was tied to something far greater than personal destiny. It was a responsibility he hadn't anticipated, one that weighed heavily on his shoulders. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan threw himself into understanding his new role. He attended ceremonies and rituals, each one steeped in symbolism and meaning. He studied the history of Lyria's people, poring over texts that detailed their struggles and triumphs across millennia. Slowly, pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. This civilization, advanced beyond measure, faced challenges that threatened their very existence. Rifts in their dimension, anomalies disrupting the flow of energy, they spoke of these things with a gravity that chilled Ethan to his core. And then there were the dreams. Vivid and relentless, they plagued his sleep, pulling him into fragmented visions of collapsing stars and fractured realities. In these dreams, he saw himself standing at the nexus of chaos, wielding the pendant as a beacon of stability. The dreams left him shaken, their implications too vast to comprehend. Was he truly meant to play a part in averting catastrophe? Or were these visions simply manifestations of his own fears and insecurities? Lyria noticed the toll it was taking on him. One night, as they lay together beneath a canopy of stars visible through the palace's translucent ceiling, she pressed her hand to his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart. "You're carrying too much," she murmured. "Let me share the burden." Her offer was sincere, yet Ethan hesitated. How could he ask her to shoulder the weight of uncertainties he barely understood himself? The tension reached a breaking point during a gathering of the council, a group of elders tasked with guiding their people through times of crisis. Ethan sat among them, listening as they debated strategies to address the growing instability in their realm. When the discussion turned to him, his potential, his role, he felt the weight of their expectations pressing down like a suffocating force. One elder suggested that the pendant he wore might hold the key to stabilizing the rifts, while another argued that its power could only be unlocked through sacrifice. Sacrifice. The word echoed in Ethan's mind, igniting a spark of resistance. He stood abruptly, surprising even himself. "I'm not just a tool," he said, his voice trembling but resolute. "I'm a person. Whatever role I have to play, it has to be on my terms, not because someone else decides it for me." The room fell silent, the elders exchanging unreadable glances. Lyria watched him from across the chamber, pride and concern etched into her luminous features. Though his outburst earned him wary respect, it also deepened the divide between him and the council. Doubt swirled around him like storm clouds, threatening to obscure the path forward. Yet, amidst the turmoil, Ethan clung to one unshakable truth. He had chosen this journey, and he would see it through, not as a pawn in someone else's game, but as a participant shaping his own destiny. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges he couldn't yet imagine, but for the first time, he felt ready to face them. Whatever the future held, he would meet it head-on, guided by the light within him and the bond he shared with Lyria. The days that followed Ethan's bold declaration to the council were marked by a palpable shift in the atmosphere of the palace. While some of the elders regarded him with renewed respect, others viewed his defiance as a threat to their carefully orchestrated plans. Whispers echoed through the crystalline halls, and Ethan could feel the weight of their scrutiny like a second skin. Yet, amidst the tension, there was also a sense of liberation. For the first time since arriving in this alien world, he felt truly seen, not as a symbol or a pawn, but as an individual with agency. Lyria became his anchor during this turbulent period. She stood by him unwaveringly, her luminous presence a constant reminder that he wasn't alone. Together, they delved deeper into the mysteries surrounding the pendant and its connection to the growing instability in her realm. The artifact seemed to pulse with increasing intensity, responding not only to Ethan's emotions but also to the fluctuations in the environment around them. It was as if the pendant itself were alive, attuned to the delicate balance of forces holding this world together. One evening, while exploring a secluded wing of the palace, Ethan and Lyria discovered an ancient chamber hidden behind a veil of shimmering light. Inside, they found a mural spanning the entire circumference of the room, depicting scenes that mirrored Ethan's recurring dreams: collapsing stars, fractured dimensions, and a lone figure standing at the center of chaos, wielding a radiant object eerily similar to the pendant. At the heart of the mural was an inscription written in the same enigmatic language Ethan had encountered before. Though he couldn't read it, the words resonated within him, stirring memories buried deep in his subconscious. "It's you," Lyria whispered, her voice tinged with awe. "This has always been about you." Her revelation sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. He traced his fingers over the mural, feeling the faint hum of energy emanating from the walls. Each touch brought flashes of clarity, fragments of forgotten lifetimes, glimpses of battles fought and alliances forged across galaxies. The visions left him breathless, his mind struggling to reconcile the enormity of what he was experiencing. As the days passed, Ethan began to piece together the truth. The pendant wasn't merely a relic, it was a fragment of something far greater, a key to unlocking the potential needed to restore balance to Lyria's world. But wielding its power came at a cost, one that neither he nor Lyria fully understood. The elders spoke of sacrifice, but their cryptic warnings offered little guidance. Was the price his humanity, his life, or something even more profound? The uncertainty gnawed at Ethan, manifesting in restless nights and moments of quiet despair. During one such moment, he found himself wandering the palace gardens under the glow of twin moons. The air was thick with the scent of alien blossoms, and the gentle hum of nocturnal creatures provided a soothing backdrop. As he sat on a bench overlooking a pool of liquid light, Lyria joined him, her expression unreadable. "You're afraid," she said softly, breaking the silence. It wasn't a question, but a statement of fact. Ethan nodded, unable to deny it any longer. "I'm afraid of failing," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid of losing myself, or worse, losing you." The vulnerability in his tone caught Lyria off guard, and for a moment, she simply stared at him, her luminous eyes searching his face. "You won't lose me," she promised, taking his hand in hers. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. But you have to trust yourself, Ethan. Trust that you were chosen for a reason, and that reason isn't just to save this world. It's to find your place within it." Her words struck a chord deep within him, reigniting the flicker of hope that had dimmed in recent weeks. Determined to embrace his role rather than resist it, Ethan resolved to seek answers beyond the confines of the palace. With Lyria by his side, he ventured into uncharted territories, guided by the pendant's ever-shifting glow. Their journey took them through landscapes both breathtaking and perilous. Fields of crystalline grass that sang when touched, forests where gravity shifted unpredictably, and caverns filled with bioluminescent creatures that communicated through pulses of light. Each step brought new challenges, testing not only Ethan's resolve but also the strength of his bond with Lyria. Along the way, they encountered others who recognized the significance of the pendant and offered fragments of wisdom. A nomadic tribe of lightweavers taught them how to harness the energy of the pendant, showing Ethan how to channel its power without being consumed by it. An ancient oracle revealed cryptic prophecies that hinted at a convergence of destinies, one that would require Ethan to make an impossible choice. Despite the progress they made, shadows loomed on the horizon. The rifts in the fabric of reality grew more pronounced, distorting the landscape and sowing fear among Lyria's people. Reports of strange phenomena reached the palace daily. Skies splitting open to reveal voids of darkness, creatures emerging from the fractures, and entire regions vanishing without a trace. The elders grew increasingly desperate, their patience wearing thin. Some began to question whether Ethan was truly capable of fulfilling his destiny, while others suggested drastic measures to ensure the survival of their civilization. The pressure mounted until it reached a breaking point. One fateful day, as Ethan and Lyria returned to the palace after a particularly grueling expedition, they were summoned before the council. The chamber was tense, the air crackling with unspoken accusations. One elder stepped forward, their gaze piercing. "The time for hesitation is over," they declared. "The rifts are spreading faster than we anticipated. If the pendant cannot stabilize them soon, our world will collapse entirely. You must act now, or step aside and let someone else take your place." Ethan's heart sank as he processed their ultimatum. Step aside? After everything he had endured, everything he had learned, they still doubted him. Beside him, Lyria stiffened, her grip on his hand tightening. Before either of them could respond, another elder interjected, their tone softer but no less urgent. "We do not doubt your intentions, human," they said. "But the stakes are too high for delay. You must decide, will you embrace your role fully, or will you allow fear to dictate your actions?" The weight of their expectations bore down on Ethan, threatening to crush him. Yet, amidst the turmoil, a spark of defiance ignited within him. This was his journey, his destiny, and no one else's. He straightened, meeting the elders' gazes with newfound determination. "I'll do what needs to be done," he said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "But not because you demand it. Because I choose to." His declaration hung in the air, met with a mixture of relief and apprehension. Lyria squeezed his hand, pride shining in her eyes. With the council's reluctant blessing, Ethan prepared for the final phase of his mission. Guided by the knowledge he had gathered and the support of those who believed in him, he set out to confront the source of the instability, a nexus point where the boundaries between dimensions were thinnest. It was a journey fraught with danger, one that would test every ounce of courage and resilience he possessed. Yet, as he stood on the precipice of the unknown, Ethan felt a strange sense of peace. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it, not as a man torn between worlds, but as someone who had finally found his place in the vast tapestry of existence. The journey to the nexus point was unlike anything Ethan had experienced before. The path twisted through realms that defied logic, where time seemed to stretch and compress unpredictably. One moment, he and Lyria were walking beneath skies painted with swirling galaxies. The next, they found themselves surrounded by an endless expanse of mirrored surfaces reflecting infinite versions of themselves. Each step forward felt like stepping into a new dimension, each one more surreal than the last. As they drew closer to their destination, the air grew heavy with an oppressive energy, crackling with static electricity that made Ethan's hair stand on end. The pendant around his neck pulsed erratically, its light flickering as if struggling against some unseen force. Ethan could feel it now, a pull, deep within his chest, urging him onward. It wasn't just the pendant guiding him anymore. It was something deeper, something primal, as though his very soul recognized the importance of what lay ahead. Lyria remained steadfast at his side, her presence both calming and grounding. She spoke little during their trek, but her unwavering gaze conveyed volumes. When the terrain became treacherous, fields of jagged crystal formations or rivers of molten light, she moved with fluid grace, clearing the way for him when necessary. Her faith in him never wavered, even when doubt crept into his own mind. Finally, after what felt like days, or perhaps mere moments, they arrived at the threshold of the nexus. It was a place unlike any other, a vast chasm suspended in the void, its edges shimmering with fractal patterns that shifted and danced like living fire. At its center floated a pulsating orb of pure energy, radiating waves of power so intense they distorted the fabric of reality itself. The rifts emanated from this core, spiraling outward like cracks in glass, threatening to consume everything in their path. Ethan hesitated at the edge, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of what he was facing. The Elder's warnings echoed in his mind, the sacrifices required, the risks involved, but none of it prepared him for the raw, visceral fear coursing through his veins. He turned to Lyria, searching her luminous eyes for reassurance. "What happens if I fail?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the roar of chaotic energy emanating from the nexus. "You won't," she replied simply, her tone leaving no room for doubt. "But even if you do, know that you've already changed us. Changed me. That's worth more than any outcome." Her words struck a chord deep within him, loosening the knot of anxiety tightening his chest. Taking a deep breath, Ethan stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the heart of the nexus. The moment he entered, the world around him dissolved into a kaleidoscope of sensations. Sound, color, emotion, all blending together in a symphony of overwhelming intensity. He felt untethered, as though his consciousness had been stripped away, leaving only the essence of who he was. And then, he saw her. Not Lyria, but someone else entirely. A figure cloaked in shadow, yet unmistakably familiar. As it approached, the darkness peeled away, revealing a woman with piercing blue eyes and hair that cascaded like liquid silver. She bore an uncanny resemblance to Lyria, yet there was something older, wiser about her, an aura of ancient wisdom that commanded reverence. "You've come far, human," the figure said, her voice resonating with a depth that transcended language. "But your journey is not yet complete." "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, his voice trembling despite his attempt to sound resolute. "I am the keeper of the nexus," she replied. "And you, Ethan, are the bridge." Her proclamation sent shockwaves through him. Questions tumbled forth, but before he could voice them, the keeper raised a hand, silencing him. "The rifts you see are not merely fractures in space and time," she explained. "They are echoes of choices unmade, paths untaken. Your arrival here has disrupted the balance, forcing these echoes to manifest. To restore harmony, you must confront the truth of your existence, not just as a man, but as a being connected to all things." Ethan's mind reeled. What truth? What does this have to do with me? The keeper's expression softened, tinged with sorrow. "You carry within you the spark of creation, a fragment of the universe's first light. It is why the pendant chose you, why you were drawn to this place. But to wield its power fully, you must embrace the duality of your nature. You are both human and cosmic, finite and infinite." Before Ethan could process her words, the ground beneath him began to quake. The orb at the center of the nexus flared violently, sending tendrils of energy lashing out in every direction. The keeper's form flickered, her presence growing unstable. "There is no more time," she said urgently. "The choice is yours: merge with the nexus, becoming one with its essence, or retreat and allow the fractures to consume this world, and countless others." Ethan staggered back, the enormity of the decision crushing him. Merge with the nexus? What did that even mean? Would he lose himself entirely, erased from existence? Or would he transcend, becoming something greater than he could comprehend? Desperation clawed at him as he glanced toward the edge of the nexus, where Lyria stood watching, her face etched with anguish. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Ethan understood. This wasn't just about saving her world, or his own. It was about embracing the interconnectedness of all things, about recognizing that every action, every choice, rippled across the cosmos. Summoning every ounce of courage, Ethan turned back to the keeper. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "But I need to know, will I still be me?" The keeper smiled faintly, her form dissolving into streams of light. "That is the question only you can answer." With those final words, she vanished, leaving Ethan alone in the heart of the nexus. The orb pulsed brighter, its energy surging toward him like a tidal wave. Closing his eyes, Ethan reached out, letting the pendant guide him. As its warmth enveloped him, he felt himself being pulled apart, atom by atom, until there was nothing left but light. When Ethan opened his eyes again, he found himself standing in a realm of pure illumination. The rifts were gone, the fractures healed. Before him stood Lyria, her luminous form radiant with joy and relief. Yet, something was different. He could feel it. The connection between them had deepened, transcending the boundaries of individuality. "You did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You saved us." But as Ethan looked at her, he realized the cost. Memories of his old life, of Eldergrove, of Earth, faded like shadows in the dawn. He remembered them, but they felt distant, like stories told by someone else. In their place was a profound sense of unity, of belonging to something far greater than himself. And yet, amidst the euphoria, a single thought lingered in his mind. Am I still Ethan? Or am I something else entirely? The question hung unanswered as the light enveloped them both, carrying them forward into a future neither could foresee.